Hence the reason why a Karcher pump, is a bit wasteful because it's 1600 psi and you use 800 of it. But anyway, that's all good. The filter that's in this machine is a standard filter. They're called an SW25-40, so 40 inches long, I think it is, and 2.5 inches in diameter, and so forth. Please realise that any chlorine getting into the filter will severely damage it. But anyway, so what happens here then is once we're running this filter, we've got a back pressure on it, if you like, at 800 psi. The water flowing out of here is wastewater. So all of this water is wastewater, and that actually flows, as you can see over here, flows outside the vessel, and you end up with a pipe hanging out the back of your back of the boat somewhere, which is just spewing out water. About 90% of the water that you put in will come out of that pipe. Okay, the other 10%, roughly, comes out this pipe here. See if I can get some information on the back of the filter here. This one here is where the fresh water is made. So this water here is what has passed over the membrane and is completely clean, clear of bacteria and all sorts of things. But anyway, so this water here goes to my flow meter, and the flow meter will tell me how much fresh water is being delivered to the tanks, and indeed that one there. I think it is that one there. I think that one there is the one which goes up to the top. This one here is the one which goes to the top tanks, which you saw at the start of the video. So that's the output water. So typically this setup would deliver me around about 1 litre a minute, which is 60 litres an hour, which is quite handy. It is also capable of being able to be run on a small 1 kVA generator to run a small Karcher pump, and works quite nicely. All right. Having said all of that, this particular version here, just quickly talking about some other bits and pieces here. This is a TDS meter which comes with the with your package if you were to do whatever. Anyway, and it's currently sitting at 77 parts per million. This is the meter which tells us what the total dissolved solids are in the output water, in the fresh water side, and indeed from the research I've done, if it's under 1,000 parts per million, it's what they called potable water, and you can drink it. Anyway, it runs around 150 to 250 or thereabouts, and I guess as the filter membrane ages, and we're probably talking 7 years at least. But it sort of depends on how many litres, how much you're using it, I suppose. But they last a very long time, yeah. So for the first 7-10 years, your TDS meter should be sort of showing well under 500. Anyway, let's say that, which is quite clean water. Interestingly enough, I've used this meter. There's the actual probe for it there. Which is measuring that's measuring the out water, and there's 2 probes on this. There's an in and an out, so I can measure the output water, and up behind here there's a similar device measuring this water here, the fresh water. If you measure rainwater, it's around about 350 parts a million. But there we go. Okay, so once again, just to recap a little bit, fresh water, salt water coming in on our saltwater pump, coming up through the system, through our saltwater filters. Then this water here goes to the Karcher pump and is pushed through the Karcher pump, through the membrane, and we put some back pressure on it, 800 kPa, and we make some fresh water. Cool, no problem. Okay, let's talk about what happens when we need to back flush, or we need to pack the unit up, because remembering, of course, that we've got fresh water, so we've got fresh water in here and also salt water in here. And if you've ever, well, you have, because you've got a boat, so if you have a look at your toilet, if you leave your salt water in the bowl in your toilet for 2 or 3 weeks, it stinks, and that's of course all the matter, all the little organisms in there. They've all died and starting to rot. So what you have to do with a reverse osmosis machine is you have to pickle it, or you have to run it. Now, there's lots of information on YouTube and so forth about how to do this, but essentially what we're saying is you have to run the machine once every 3 or 4 days. In other words, if you make water every 3, 4, 5, 6 days, maximum about no longer than a week, maybe 5 days, 6 days. If you're making water that regularly, you don't need to backflush or do anything, because the salt water that's left inside the membrane gets flushed out with the next layer of fresh water that's been manufactured. All right. However, we on Let's Go don't make that much water. We will make water, about 5, 6, 10 times a year for Christmas, and then we'll pack the boat up, and we might not use it for a month, and then we'll come back out again, and so on. So that's a little bit of a problem. So what we do is we have a carbon filter here. Okay, so if on the 7th day or the 8th day, there's a carbon filter here, and this setup here is all fresh water. Now, this is fresh water from the fresh water pump in the boat. In my case, this type of device here, and the water that is made, the water that's on the boat has been made by the reverse osmosis machine. So we can simply turn this solenoid on, and we can pump fresh water straight into this filter here. This is a 5 micron carbon filter. The reason the carbon filter is here is only for one job, and that is to remove any chlorine in the water. Now, if I have made all my water on the boat through the reverse osmosis machine, there is no chlorine in the water, so that water can go straight through. However, from time to time, I do fill the tanks up on the boat with town water, if you like, which could have chlorine in it. If you put chlorine into your RO membrane, you will destroy it. Done. So this filter takes out any chlorine if there were to be any, and simply all that happens now is fresh water moves through here, through this filter, straight through here, straight through these two filters here, pushing the salt water out of these filters, pushing the salt water out of these. So we're now starting to have fresh water going up into the high pressure pump, and obviously the fresh water now starts to go through the membrane, and we're now starting to make fresh water out of fresh water, which is a bit silly, but anyway, there you go. But we make fresh water out of fresh water, but we've given it a flush, and we've removed all of those dying organisms which could damage the reverse osmosis filter. All right. So to do that, in the electric version, we can simply press a button here and just do a manual flush, and we'll see some water pressure starting to flow through the machine. In my case, I don't need to run the Karcher because it pushes it straight through there. And if I look at the TDS meter, I can actually read I could read the output, and once this output reading TDS goes down to sort of 150, then I know I've removed all the salt water out of that system. Hope that's all as clear as mud. I'm going to make another video shortly, which is talking about a little bit more longer term. So, I guess look, I'll just quickly mention this timer here. This timer here I've got set up so that every 90 hours, or I think it works somehow or other. This works out to be every about 4 or 5 days. It automatically does a flush for about 5 minutes. So if I'm not on the boat and I've forgotten, then it will automatically do that for me, and that's a useful sort of thing. So anyway, there we go. All right. Next video I will do, which we'll talk about a little bit more longer term locking up of the system. So for instance, in Tasmania, where this system is, we have a setup where we put some chemical into some fresh water, and we remove the intake, saltwater intake, and we put that into a bucket, and we run the machine for a period of time, and we pump chemical through the whole system. It's actually the chemical itself is actually let's turn around here and see if I can get a little. So I don't know if you can see me or not, but the chemical itself is actually the same stuff that you use to clean your beer bottles with. I'll tell you what that is when we do the next video, and that allows the filter to be surrounded by a chemical which doesn't allow anything to grow, and therefore you can leave the system locked up for a year before you can you just run the machine again, and that'll pump that chemical out and so forth. But that next video might be a little bit noisy, but anyway, we'll do that one shortly. So see you on the next one on the reverse osmosis pickling.